Smallpox and anthrax have both made headlines, but what is their significance moving forward? And what can we do to guard ourselves against a bioterrorism attack? Professor Addicott will address this and more now on Perceptions the Law Prof.
Hi, I'm Professor Addicott, and today we're going to talk about bioterrorism. Bioterrorism is kind of related to cyber terrorism. It's an issue that many people don't think about, but it's an issue that could do great harm to the nation. And particularly what we're concerned with is pandemic diseases. These are diseases that can spread from human to human very rapidly and kill large numbers of people. In human history, we've seen this before with the Black Death in Europe that took out a third of the population. We've seen it with the Spanish flu across the world that even impacted the United States following World War I. And so the issue is, if we have an influenza, if we have some type of a pandemic that occurs, is the government prepared to deal with that? How do we stop it? What do we do about it? There's very little case law regarding what the government can do and how they would respond. We also have the friction between states' rights and the federal government. The governor of the state has the authority to protect citizens within his state, and of course the federal government has the obligation, the authority to protect citizens in the United States, which includes border security. So bioterrorism basically deals with the issue, what are we going to do? One, would we be able to identify a bioterrorist incident if it occurred, and would we be able to respond in time? The Amu Senriku was a terrorist organization, they were kind of a sort of a religious terrorist organization in Japan. They were composed of scientists, biologists, physicists, very brilliant people. But their goal was to kill everybody and to conquer the world. As it seems, most of these terrorist organizations that have the end of the world desire, they express these things in violence. So one of the things that the Amu Senriku did, they sent some of their scientists to Africa to harvest the Ebola virus. Their goal was to introduce that into a population and kill everybody. But of course their desire was not to kill themselves, and they had to have some type of an antidote. The anthrax virus attack that we had, that's not a pandemic attack because it doesn't spread from person to person. You have to actually come in contact with the substance. We saw that following 9/11, and we saw the scare that put. So when you use it as an act of terrorism, it does cause fright. The big issues from a legal perspective is, can the government quarantine people? Can they isolate people? Can they take your property? And how would that happen? The answer to those questions in the big picture is yes. The government has the authority to detain individuals that have been infected. They have the authority to isolate those individuals. They have the authority to take property. They have the authority to burn and destroy property. But the mechanics, how are they going to do it? The Bush administration actually tried to develop some regulations to deal with the mechanics. If we detain someone, how long can we detain them? How long can we put them in quarantine? What would be reasonable? If we do so, what type of rights do they have? What type of conditions do we have to afford them? Can we take their property? Do we have to compensate them for the property pre-disaster value or post-disaster value? These regulations were offered for comment, as many administrative regulations are offered, and for years they sat and they were not endorsed. The Obama administration took them off the table about a year and a half ago. So we really don't have any mechanisms for implementing how you would go about isolating, how you would go about quarantining individuals, who would have the responsibility, and many legal issues are related to that. For example, if you have medical personnel, can you force them to go to work in the hospital if they don't want to? Licensing issues. What if they're licensed in one state? Can we waive that to have them work in another state? And then, as I said, taking of property, 14th Amendment issues, due process issues. Who's going to provide the due process? So those are issues that obviously in this short segment we can't go into great depth, but that's the broad brush picture. Are we susceptible to a bioterrorist attack? Yes. Will it happen in the future? Probably. Are we prepared for it? Absolutely not. To stay up to date on the latest news, be sure to like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter.